In this episode, we have an amazing interview with Dr. Stephen EDELMAN, founder of Taking Control of Your Diabetes. We'll also have tips from the Culinary Institute of America, tips that I learned while going to chef school. The recipe of the podcast are amazing air fryer pork chops with caramelized apples and onions. Stay tuned. This is going to be an epic podcast. This episode of the Happy Diabetic Kitchen podcast is sponsored by my diabetes supplier, US Med. US Med offers free shipping and a 90-day supply with every order. To see how they can simplify your diabetes care, call 1-877-840-8218. I did, and I can feel the love. Remember, there is a much better solution, US Med. Hello everyone, welcome to the Happy Diabetic Kitchen. I am your host, Chef Robert Lewis, the Happy Diabetic, and this is the internet's most delicious cooking podcast. I'm here in the kitchen getting ready to explore a healthy diabetic lifestyle. I want to take the mystery out of healthy cooking and explore some amazing foods and my diabetic journey with all my successes and all my challenges. So let me help you live your best happy diabetic lifestyle. So welcome to the kitchen. And if you're new to the show, I am so happy you're here today. Again, welcome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Happy Diabetic Kitchen podcast. We have an epic show for you today. And in this episode, an interview with Dr. Steve EDELMAN, my good friend, founder of Taking Control of Your Diabetes. And we're going to talk about their upcoming conference happening this Saturday called Ace Your Diabetes with TCOYD. It's kind of a takeoff on gambling and casinos in Las Vegas, April the 15th. We also have the recipe of the podcast, my air fryer baked pork chops with caramelized, yes, I said caramelized, apples and onions, and cooking tips I learned while at my cooking school, the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. So excited that you're here. This is going to be an epic podcast. I'm so excited to have Steve on the show. And listen, if you've never visited the tcoyd.org website, check it out. It's my first stop for everything current with diabetes. All right, everybody, stay tuned. We will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. It's time for the recipe of the podcast. And today's recipe is brought to you by my kids, who for my birthday got me an air fryer. And I'm thinking to myself, really, an air fryer? What do I do with that? Of course, air fryers are really popular, really hot right now. But I'm going to show you how to cook something delicious in there. And I do this all the time with salmon and pork chops and grilled chicken. It is absolutely amazing. Air fryers are not just for egg rolls. So for this recipe of my amazing rubbed pork chops, here's what you're going to need. 2 center cut pork chops, about 1.5 inches to 2 inches thick. You're going to need some brown sugar, paprika, salt, ground black pepper, ground mustard, onion powder, and garlic powder. And you're going to mix all that up. That's going to be your rub. Now, I will put this recipe on the website, happydiabetic.com. Just go to the blog area and search in pork chops of love, and you will find them. You're also going to need about 1 tablespoon to 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil or yellow mustard. I'll tell you in a second what that's for. 1 medium apple sliced, 1 medium onion sliced. So here we go. We're going to preheat the air fryer 390 degrees for about 5 minutes. I like to rinse the pork chops in very cold water and then pat them completely dry with a paper towel. This is going to make the pork chops cook up evenly and nice and brown. So in a small bowl, we're going to mix together all the dry ingredients, all the spices. Airtight container, I have a bunch of it on my shelf because I use it for salmon, chicken, pork, everything. Eggs, it's amazing. So we're going to coat the pork chops with the olive oil. Or you can use dry mustard because that's going to adhere the rub to the pork chop. And then we're going to rub the the pork chops with the mix, this brown sugary spicy mix. It's so delicious. Now, when I say spicy, don't get excited. It's not hot. It's sweet and savory and really delicious. Rub it in really good, and I like to let it sit for at least a half hour at room temperature, no problem. Then we're going to cook the pork chops in the air fryer at 390 degrees for 5 minutes. Then we're going to flip the pork chops over and cook them for another 10 to 12 minutes until the chops are ready. Now, while the chops are cooking, I've taken a little bit of olive oil in a saute pan with my sliced apples and onions, and I'm just going to cook them till the onions are caramelized and the apples are really tender. You can season with a little salt and a little pepper. And that's going to go on top of the pork chops after they're cooked. So once your pork chops have been in the air fryer for about 15 minutes, check the temperature of the pork chops with an internal temperature. Now, we've talked about this before. You need a thermometer so you can check your food temps. So ideally, regardless however you're cooking pork chops, all chops will be cooked at 145 and safe to eat. But once you know that, you'll be able to cook juicy pork chops with confidence, no matter what cooking method you use. But don't let the chops go higher than 160 degrees, because then they'll start to dry out. So as the apples and onions are cooking, it's going to be all nice and caramely. Plate up the pork chops, top them with the apple and onion caramelization deliciousness right out of the pan. It is going to be absolutely amazing, and I think probably one of your family's favorite recipes in the air fryer. I know, who knew? Air fryers are not only for chicken nuggets and chicken fingers and egg rolls, right? Salmon, chicken. And I'm going to be using the air pot a lot this coming next few months, so I'll throw some recipes on the website about it and help you cook your best happy diabetic lifestyle way of eating. All right, everybody, stay tuned. You know what's going to happen next. An amazing interview with Dr. Stephen Edelman. Stay tuned, everybody. We will be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. We are in the kitchen today with a very good friend of mine, Dr. Steve Edelman. So let me just chat quickly. Steve, how you doing?
I'm good, Robert. And do I call you? I usually call you chef sometimes. Can I go back and forth?
You can, absolutely. Steve, I got to ask you a question. Are you ready to get happy?
Yes. And
all right.
If there's anybody that's going to make me happy, it's you. Seriously.
Wow.
You got the best attitude.
Well, you are the nicest person I know. But let's talk about you, Steve. So let me give you a quick introduction to all the happy diabetics out there about you. And it could take about 5 hours, but I've tried to condense it down. So Dr. Edelman is the founder and director of Taking Control of Your Diabetes, TCOYD, and you can find them at tcoyd.org. He's a professor of medicine in the Division of Endocrinology, Diabetes, and Metabolism at the University of California, San Diego, UCSD, and the Veterans Affairs Healthcare System of San Diego. And Dr. Steve is a type 1 diabetic. He's written more than 200 articles, 5 books, won numerous awards, Teacher of the Year, Educator of the Year. I don't even know where to start. And my close and personal friend.
You know what? In summary, I wear a lot of hats. And as I am getting towards, I would say, the senior part of my career, I'm still at the university. I enjoy teaching there and doing some clinical research. I love working with our vets. And I spend, I'd say, the majority of my time with Taking Control of Your Diabetes, where we actually, where I feel is my true love, where we can educate people living with diabetes and their loved ones to take better care of themselves and to interact with their healthcare professionals to get the services they need. That's it right there. And I got to know Robert putting on face-to-face conferences around the country for 25 years at convention centers. And then this little virus came along and everything changed. So that's how I got to know Robert. And I got to know Robert and his wife, Cindy, extremely well through the years.
Yeah, an honor for me to be at Taking Control of Your Diabetes events and, along with you and the rest of the team, making a difference in people's lives living with diabetes. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And you mentioned COVID, so things have changed a little bit for TCOYD. And the reason I'm so excited to have Steve on the show today is because April 15th,
Yeah.
you've got a conference. Why don't you tell everybody out there about this conference?
Yeah. Just, the little virus that came along, which was the beginning of 2020, everyone remembers that. We're putting on face-to-face conferences where you can't get 1,000, 2,000 people in a room together. Of course, you couldn't get anybody together back then. So we turned to virtual. We have a fantastic producer and director where we can actually memorialize all the lectures we do now because we tape them in a studio. Whereas before, we could tape Chef Robert up on the stage doing his cooking class and making really good jokes about food and cooking and eating. But the quality was just too bad with the sound and the visuals. So that's one silver lining. We're also able to offer everything we do for free. And now I was telling Chef Robert that we now reach 2.5 million people per month around the world, not just the US, because diabetes unfortunately crosses all socioeconomic, geographical borders. And we've been putting on virtual conferences. And a lot of people are hesitant about virtual conferences, but we have fine-tuned them through the year. So on April 15th, it starts at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, the most important time zone there is, being in San Diego. And we have a really fun conference with a Las Vegas theme. So it's called Ace Your Diabetes. And it's important to tell everybody that it's free. It's easy to register. It's a very nice virtual platform. When you sign up, it takes you through a little instructional use, how to use it. So it's got the auditorium where the lectures are. We have a health fair with pharmaceutical and device reps that will be there to answer your questions. We have a networking lounge. And we're going to have live Q&A throughout the day with every lecture. Now, you don't get to speak on a mic and someone doesn't speak on a mic back, but you type it in the chat box, and we have doctors like myself and Dr. Pettis going to be firing back answers. And we also have a session which is at the same time for the people that take the type 1 track and the type 2 track, because there's some things us type 1s and type 2s have in common, and there's some things that we don't have in common. But the live Q&A is at 12:05 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, which I guess is 2 p.m. on Central. But I guess Chef Robert's listeners come from all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a very important thing. When you register before the conference, anytime up to the conference, and even after, actually, the platform stays there for 2 weeks, where you can go. Let's say you miss part of it or you miss all of it. You can still go back and hear every lecture as it was, and you can see the questions and the answers in the chat box. Obviously, it won't be live because it'll be at a different time. And you can watch with your family members, your friends, and Chef, I don't know if you looked at some of the fun lectures we have, but we try to make it a Las Vegas theme. And almost everything we do has good content, but entertaining value. Just kind of like the Chef Robert when he does his presentations.
Yeah. I just want to say also that not only is the content fun and engaging, but if you're looking for a source for the real word on diabetic care and happenings for type 1s and type 2s, there's no better place than TCOYD, because great doctors, great speakers, and information that's up to date and current.
Thank you, sir. Well, I can just say real briefly, if now's a good time to just super summarize the program. Well, it opens up with, just getting used to the platform. We try to make it as easy as possible. We actually have a video giving instructions, and there's the health fairs open. You can look around, but the first lecture is for both folks with type 1 and type 2. It's called the Wild Cards of Diabetes, and every title has a Las Vegas theme. Michelle Day in our office is just amazing at that. what are things that affect your blood sugar other than food? So we talk about a lot of things, and I won't give away, but I'm going to be doing that with my good friend and colleague, Jeremy Pettis, who is also an endocrinologist like myself, who also has type 1 diabetes. Now, in the type 1 track, we have a lecture that's called From Sniffles to what is it, to surgeries. And it's basically taking the crapshoot, quote unquote, out of sick days and hospitalization. And it's given by Tricia Santos, someone that works with Jeremy and myself. She does inpatient diabetes care. And, so many times when people go to the hospital, hopefully not you, but we all end up there at some time or another. And, usually the doctors mess up your diabetes pretty badly. So
Right.
It kind of gives you clues how to stay in control. And in the type 2 track, we have a lecture called Know Your Numbers, and you'll hit the jackpot with your diabetes health. And that's really the basics with cholesterol, blood pressure, A1C, also CGM metrics like time and range. Now, the next presentation, which is probably the most fun, Chef, is for both people in the type 1 and type 2 track, winning your way through a buffet line. So guess what? When everyone goes to Vegas, you got to go to a buffet, right? And
Right.
as someone with diabetes, you're going, holy SHIT. And so Jeremy and I found a buffet in San Diego. We didn't want to fly to Vegas just for that filming. And they wouldn't let us film in the buffet. Very strict. But we went through, we picked all the foods we wanted. We got them in a to-go thing. We brought them to our studio. And then as we put them on plates, we described why we picked certain things. And then we had an endocrinologist, Jenny Luna, who has an interest in nutrition and weight loss. And she analyzed what we picked. And I loved when she looked at my first plate and said, Steve, there's a lot of rainbow colors on that plate. And, Jeremy had like 3 pieces of, the simplest form of lettuce with like blue cheese, nothing else except croutons and bacon. I had vegetables, so anyway, I think the point is that we wanted to show people how to go to a buffet, eat, have a great time, enjoy your meal, but also survive diabetes wise. And so, the other fun thing we did was a game show called How to Be a Diabetes Millionaire. And also they had me do a lecture on, this is the part that they always pick me for, staying in the game, living longer and aging well with diabetes. Gee, I wonder why they picked me, Chef. So anyway, I would say go online, look at the different lectures. Once again, you could see them live, and you can get live Q&A. Mm-hmm. You can go back later. And after that 2 weeks is up, we take those individual lectures, and we put them in the video vault on our website. So they're never really lost. They're kind of broken up from the conference, which is kind of fun. The virtual health fair, you've mentioned it, Chef, you've been on there. It's fun, and that'll be open for 2 weeks. And lastly, it is our 11th original song, and it's called Roll the Dice. And our music singer-songwriter, Eric, and Jeremy, who's our top ham of the TCOAD group, and he sings the song. He dresses up like Elvis, and you can see a picture of him when you go to our website on the landing page. So I did a lot of talking, Chef. Please jump in there. And
yeah, well,
I do appreciate you letting us get the word out.
Oh yeah, you bet. I love the TCOID events, and I registered. Simply go to tcoid.org. You'll see the links to register. Super easy. Took me about 2 minutes. Got a confirmation. I'm jumping on, and I love them. I mean, I've had diabetes since 1998, and I'm learning every day something new technology, new ways to live my best happy diabetic life. And so I just wanted to share that with all the happy diabetics out there today. If you've never been to a TCOID event, I'm telling you, it could change your life. It changed my life. And Steve had me there to do cooking demonstrations. And man, I just learned so much.
You also did other things, Chef, if you remember.
I did.
You gave multiple different lectures. And I think
yes,
you are you know, we can just compliment each other all during the podcast.
I
But
think let's do that.
you're quite unique because you're smart, you're nice, you have the gift of gab, and you give practical information, and you're funny at the same time. So that sort of is what we like at TCOID is entertaining but giving out good information. And
Yeah.
you're such a strong part of TCOID.
Well, I appreciate that, Steve. It has a special part in my heart, and yeah, it's just a great organization. So, Steve, how did you get started in diabetic? What was your diabetic medical journey? How did this all happen for you?
Yeah. Well, Chef, I tell people this when I get asked that, when I introduce myself, a brief introduction. Well, I was born 1955. I got type 1 when I was 15. I wanted to become a diabetes specialist. So I went to the famous Joslin Clinic in Boston. I did advanced training at UCSD. And at one point, there came out this very famous study, and I'm sure you've heard of it. Maybe some of the listeners have not heard of it, called the DCCT, Diabetes Control and Complication Trial. That was the result. It was a 9-year study. The results were announced in 1993, and the results is shocking. That if you go to the hassles of controlling a person with diabetes, their blood sugars, they can prevent and delay any complications of diabetes. So you might think that's crazy. Why would they spend money on a study to show that? We know that. Well, before 1993, we didn't have any big studies to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And doctors always want everything proven. So in 1995, I had this idea, taking a shower, saying, we need to put on a conference for people with diabetes to teach them what they need to do. Because you know what happened, Chef, is that in 1993, the results came out, New England Journal of Medicine, that's the top medical journal. And then I noticed that things weren't changing at the community level. Doctors were doing the same old thing, letting people run sweet, not being aggressive with their blood sugars. And that kind of irked me. And I kind of pulled away from medical education for healthcare professionals, said, I'm going directly to the people most affected by this condition, people living with diabetes. And that was the birth of our first TCOID conference, 1995, 2 years after the DCCT was announced at the San Diego Convention Center. And just to finish up, I thought I would do one conference a year at the convention center. We had 800 people the first year. And after the first conference, Chef, people were coming up, and I realized how thirsty they were for information, and that you could really make a difference going directly to these people living with diabetes and their loved ones. And then it turned out to be 2 a year, 4 a year, and it ended up 10 a year for the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID came along. But I'll tell you what, there was a silver lining in COVID for us, because we're able to help so many more people being virtual and trying to do it in a way that keeps people's attention. Because there are a lot of people living with diabetes in this country and around the world, and we wanted to make something accessible and free of charge.
Yeah, they're top-notch events. So well done. So well done.
Well,
so, Steve,
Chef,
yes, go ahead.
I should add,
go ahead.
All the folks with type 1 diabetes listening, we are having our very first face-to-face since COVID at Paradise Point Hotel all weekend long in August, third weekend in August. And it's going to be for adults with type 1 diabetes. And we have an awesome program. It will be our fourth, separated by the 3 years of COVID. Mm-hmm. And it's an awesome weekend too, because adults with type 1 need to hang out together. And who knows, maybe we'll do a 2, and we will make you the headliner presentation, Chef.
Oh man, I'll be there. I'll be there. And that'll be in San Diego. So there's information on the website about that meetup. Absolutely. Yep. So Steve, let's just talk a little bit about eating and food, right? Because listen, it's the Happy Diabetic Kitchen, and we love food. I know you love food.
Yeah.
It's so what is some of your first food memories from your youth that you might cherish? Memories that maybe a loved one cooked for you, or a mom or someone, any early memories?
Yeah. Okay. You know what? You didn't prep me with this question, but I do have some early memories when I was growing up. My father was not around much. That's a whole different podcast. And my mother was a school teacher. God bless her. She's 95 now and doing fairly well. She she would have to go to school and do her teaching job, come home and cook for us three kids. For a while, it was just me and my sister. My brother's 8 years younger than me, and my sister's a couple years older. And she would buy uh, chickens, not the kind that's already cooked for you at Ralph's or Vaughn's or whatever store. You just go home and eat them.
Right.
And she would put that kitchen bouquet dark stuff on there, some spices. She'd cut up a potato, I think maybe red potatoes, in the pan, and then she would make some kind of vegetable and put it in the oven. And that was our dinner probably 3 to 4 days a week. And I do have that memory in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
And since today we're taping, it's near the Jewish holidays. She would make matzo ball soup and potato
Yeah.
pancakes
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff that brings back memories as well. But
Yeah.
that roasted chicken, probably cost $1.
Right.
She did it herself.
Wow. Yeah. From scratch. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
just really from scratch.
Yeah. Steve, do you like to cook?
I do like to cook. Now, Chef, I don't know if you noticed, but on our newsletter, I have several recipes. Now, they're not the fanciest ones, but I had maple sausage egg scramble, Edelman's big ass salad, beta cell omelet. I put my mega ball matzo ball soup.
Love it.
I make my matzo balls really big. In fact, I usually call them elephant balls, but that wasn't politically correct. And then I made something else. Oh, for Super Bowl, I made a crab dip. So I do like to
Nice.
cook, and I don't cook fancy, but I'm kind of a scrap cooker. A
Yeah.
little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'm not someone that really gets a recipe and follows it verbatim, but I do like to cook.
Do you have a favorite food?
Well, and my girlfriend Jamie of 11
Yes.
years.
Yep.
I
Yep.
should just call her my wife. And she the only thing she makes is reservations. And if she was here, she'd be laughing, and it's totally true. What do I like to cook? I do like to make, I hate to say this, but spinach souffle.
Oh, nice.
And I like to make veggie burgers.
Okay.
And I like certain tofu dishes. And I like breakfast food, so I like to make omelets and scrambled eggs. So I'm not sometimes I'll buy some salmon and broil that, and
Right.
so I it's kind of a basic cooker. She thinks I'm a great cook, but if she
Wow.
only knew.
Yeah. Listen, that's good for you, I guess. Yeah. So you mentioned the newsletter, and I know you can subscribe to that at the website, tcoid.org. I'm a faithful subscriber and love reading it. Great stuff.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Steve, in your mind, what's the biggest challenge diabetics face today regarding eating?
Well, I would say food is probably one of the biggest challenges in general. Type 1, type 2, whether you have problems with your weight, problems with your blood sugars, whether you're on insulin or whether you're not on insulin. And you know what? Everyone likes to eat. If you don't like to eat and you're losing weight, you better get checked out and get ruled out for carcinoma, for example. I'm a doctor. And I think, every time someone with diabetes sits down in front of a meal, there's all these emotions that go on. Should I be eating that? How much should I eat? Is that going to wreck my blood sugars? Is that going to cause my cholesterol to go up? Because all of us have to worry about our cholesterol. Or if it's too salty, our blood pressure. So it is something that affects all of us during our waking hours. Now, if you're someone that sleepwalks to the fridge, then it affects you 24/7. What's that? I forgot the name of that disorder, but it's rare. So I would say for people with type 1 diabetes, it's all about the carbs, because that's what we use to calculate the insulin. The lower the carbs, the better. But 90% of people love carbs, so you have to figure that out. And I think people with type 2, it's carbs too, but it's also carbs because carbs in general have a lot of calories. And as you know, Chef, you have to watch your weight. Now, if you convert to protein and fat, that's great. But if you have high cholesterol, you better watch the fat. And so it turns out that our our choices are limited. But I'm a big believer in portion size.
Right.
It's
Right.
all about, like, it is. It's not what you
Yep.
eat, how much you eat. That famous quote that you always quote me on.
Yeah. And Steve, I'm going to ask you a question. I know the answer. I know you know the answer. And people ask me this all the time, but they say every expert comes from 200 miles away. So today you're about 3,000 miles from my house. But the question is there such a thing as a diabetic diet?
Well, you've heard me present too many times, and the answer is no. There's no such thing as a diabetic diet, and I can summarize it by 2 to 3 well-balanced meals per day, eating the correct portion size, avoiding simple sugars as much as you can. I mean, that's much easier said than done. I like to say that people should stick to their personal and ethnic preferences either. What if you're
Mhm.
a Latino individual, you get type 2 when you're 55, and some dietitian says, oh, for breakfast, 1 scoop of cottage cheese and rye crisp. I'm like, yeah, right. I wouldn't eat it even if I do like cottage cheese. Or if
Right.
if you've grown up with a certain type of food, you can't just change everything 180 degrees. And that's what
Agreed.
people like yourself are for, to take foods, make them healthy, and make them taste good.
Right. Live a lifestyle way of eating. But wow, I'd like to have $1 for every time someone said, please send me your diabetic diet. Yeah. So
Yeah,
thanks.
Chef, the ADA, God bless them, they used to have these tear off sheets for healthcare professionals. What is the 1800 ADA diet? And like, oh my God, I like,
Yeah. Right. Right.
if your listeners could see me putting my finger down my throat, and
Yeah.
it never worked.
Yeah.
It never worked at all. And but you're so right. There is no such thing as a diabetic diet. A lot of it's common sense, a lot of it's education, and I don't think there's a single person on this earth that can't find a good generalized meal plan, diet, eating habits that is not generally healthy and good for their diabetes.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Steve, I don't think you mentioned this, but you were diagnosed with type 1. Were you 15?
Yes, I did
Yeah.
mention it.
Yeah.
Remember, I
Okay.
was born. I got type 1 when I was 15.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
maybe I
That's right.
missed it.
No,
But
I
you're
don't
right.
know. Maybe I missed it, but
No,
yeah.
maybe I
Okay.
missed it. We're both in our 60s. We
Uh,
maybe what's that drug they sell on, they advertise on television? Was it Prevagen?
yeah, something like that.
That doesn't work.
No.
I bought a bottle. I
Okay.
forgot where I put it.
So, Steve, in your professional life, can you pinpoint something that you are super proud about?
Well, I've been blessed, and I do think that the single thing I am the most proud of is starting taking control of your diabetes. It was a very unique thing back in 1995. No one ever heard of putting on a conference for patients with diabetes,
Mhm.
maybe doctors with diabetes, and really taking the stance that everybody with diabetes wants to live a long and healthy life. And
Yeah.
people are not, you can hear doctors talk about their patients that upset them. They're slime balls. They don't do what I tell them to do. They're non-compliant. I never met anybody that doesn't want to live a long and healthy life with diabetes. And I think taking control of your diabetes really is to get to know people, get to understand where they're coming from, so you can make a positive impact. And I just hate when hear healthcare professionals say, that person I've tried for years. I just can't motivate them. And they just let them go along poorly controlled. And that does happen here and there, but with our healthcare system being broken as it is, how hard it is to get appointments, how little time there is, how many distractions there are during the visit, it's tough out there for people with diabetes.
Yeah, it
So
is.
TCOID is my most proudest accomplishment by far.
Yeah, yeah. I tell people all the time, if you're confused about what you're hearing from your family, from your doctor, from your relatives, whomever, about how you should be caring for your diabetes, there are great resources on the internet. There's no question about it. But I think if you could just dial in the tcoid.org website, it's categorized, easy to follow. Subjects are categorized, and you will find some of the most current, up to date, easily communicative. I like to call them no doctor slides.
You're right.
Communication to people like me with diabetes who are just trying to live healthy.
Yeah.
And we come across people all the time who have an opinion about how I should be living or eating or what medication I should be taking. And they don't have diabetes and they read, I don't know where they get their information, but for me, tcoid.org is always a good source. And I'm just not saying this because you and I are friends or I've been a part of your events. It really is a quality place to learn about how to control your diabetes.
I appreciate that very much. And we have gotten away from the little talking head in the corner with slides. So, and we have a lot of good humor, and you'll love the lyrics to our songs and everything. So I don't think we have any better fans than you, Chef. But I'll tell you what, when people go to our conferences, and we hear so many nice comments back, and we just want to be able to, as you would say, spread the love and offer it to anybody that needs help with diabetes, including family members who do not have diabetes but are concerned.
Right. Okay, Steve, thanks for hanging out. I really appreciate it. So the conference, Ace Your Diabetes with TCOID, April 15th. It's a virtual diabetes conference and health fair. Register online at tcoid.org. I'm going to be there in the chat rooms, hanging out, talking to my favorite doctors. And I just would welcome all my friends out there to really experience this. I think it will be amazing.
Chef, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this more than I can even tell you. You told me just come on and tell the folks about the conference, and I didn't know you're going to do a whole podcast on me, but together, and we're going to have you as a guest on our podcast as well.
Yeah, I would love to do it. I'd love to do it. All right, Steve. Well, listen, no one loves you more than me. And thanks for being on the podcast today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome back, everybody. And now it's time for cooking tips I learned at my chef school, the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York, the Harvard of chef schools, or so they said. I always called it the other CIA. All right, let's go. So tip number 1, thoroughly dry all meats before cooking. This helps them brown quickly, and on poultry, it crisps up the skin. And speaking of chicken skin, did you know it's not really bad for you? But again, everything in moderation. So in the recipe of the podcast, we talked about drying off the pork chops really well. This is going to help them to brown quickly and deliciously and evenly. Okay, so when it comes to seasoning, here's my tip number 2. Acid is as important as salt and pepper. So you all know the importance of salt and pepper to seasoning foods, but acid is just as essential to all your cooking. Acid helps brighten flavors, adds freshness, and can help make a heavy dish feel a lot lighter. Now, if you find yourself stuck with a dish that tastes flat, despite what you think being properly salted or peppered, chances are it needs a touch of acid. So at the CIA, we would turn to white wine, lemon juice, or a splash of vinegar, or lemon or lime. You don't need much. A tablespoon is often plenty, but a small amount, in addition, can seriously transform your dish from dull to amazing. All right, everybody, that's my tips from the Culinary Institute of America. Stay tuned. We're coming back right away. So I know this is hard to believe, but I recently signed up for Medicare. Now, what about my Libre 2 system from Abbott? As my pharmacy was trying to figure it all out, all the complicated paperwork, I was getting a little frustrated, and quite honestly, so were they. So I called US Med to see if there was a better way. And guess what? There is. Their motto is better service, better care. It's what they call white glove service. And I was worn out by having to make multiple trips to the pharmacy, only to discover the orders were not even ready. Long lines, or they would say, we need to call your doctor. We need to get confirmation for the refill. It went back and forth and back and forth. And after about 2 weeks of this, I absolutely had it. I would reach out to the pharmacy and they would say, the doc never called us back, or they never followed up. That's the thing I hated the most. Are you ready for US Med to always provide you 90 days worth of supplies with fast, free shipping? Yes, free shipping. Look, they carry everything from insulin pumps to diabetic testing supplies to the latest CGMs. The Freestyle Libre 2 and 3 and the Dexcom G6. You know my love for the Libre 2 system, and US Med is the number one for the Libre 2 systems nationwide. Look, if you're just starting with Medicare like me, US Med should be your very next call. They accept Medicare nationwide and a broad private insurance coverage with over 800, that's right, 800 private insurers, plus an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau. If you're looking for supplies from everything from insulin pumps to diabetes testing supplies to the latest CGMs, and you're looking for better service, easier service, delivered right to your door, free shipping, US Med is who you should be getting a hold of. Dial this number right now. Well, why don't you wait till the podcast is over? 888-885-0012, or simply go to usmed.com/happy diabetic. Don't wait any longer. Oh, wait a second. I think that's my doorbell. I think that's US Med delivering my 90-day supply now. Call them or go to the website usmed.com/happy diabetic now. Again, don't wait any longer. The Happy Diabetic does not provide medical advice. This podcast is offered only to provide general information regarding health, wellness, and nutrition. Information in this podcast is really not intended to be a substitute for medical treatment performed by a healthcare professional. So, if you have questions, consult them before making any major changes to your diet or your eating or exercise lifestyle. I'm not a doctor or a certified educator. I'm a chef living with type 2 diabetes just like you. Although I have 3 children, Attila, Dracula, and Frankenstein, that makes me a psychiatrist of sorts. If you're loving what you hear in the kitchen, be sure to share this podcast, The Happy Diabetic Kitchen, with all your friends and family. And if you want to hear the latest episodes, just head over to my website, happydiabetic.com. We'll always have them there or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Of course, hoping this is your favorite podcast. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss a single recipe or podcast episode. Our podcast is sponsored by my friends at US Med Supply. Our theme music by the Happy Diabetic Kitchen Band, and of course, our kitchen mascots, Scout and Tucker. This year, better than last year. This month, better than last month. This week, better than last week. And this day, better than yesterday. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And let me leave you with this thought. Make a difference in someone's life today. Remember, leave people always better than you found them. So long for now, and remember, no one loves you more than me.